Discipline is giving yourself a command and then following it. Most people don't realize this, but every time you explode in anger, every time you panic in fear, every time you react without thinking, you're giving your power away. Bob Proctor said it best. When you react, you give away your power. When you respond, you are staying in control of yourself. So let me ask you, how much of your life has been controlled not by you, but by your reactions? Stay with me, because in the next minutes you'll discover how to stop bleeding power in every conflict, every failure, every fear, and how to step into the calm authority that makes people stop, listen, and follow your lead. Imagine this. You're in traffic. Someone cuts you off. Your blood boils. You honk, you yell, you curse. And for a moment, you feel justified. But then what? Your heart races. Your energy drains. Your mood for the rest of the day collapses. One driver, 1 second, stole your power, not because they deserved it, but because you reacted. The hidden trap of reaction. Bob Proctor's words cut deep. When you react, you give away your power. And that is the invisible trap most people live in every single day. They react to insults, they react to fear, they react to failure, they react to rejection. And each reaction is like signing away a piece of their own authority. Ethan, the prisoner of reaction. Ethan was talented. He had skills that could have taken him far, but his weakness was invisible. He reacted to everything. When his boss criticized him, he snapped back. When a colleague took credit for his idea, he sulked for days. When a client pushed too hard, he lost his temper. And soon Ethan became that guy, the one people avoided. Not because he lacked ability, but because he had no control over his emotions. He didn't see it, but every outburst made him smaller in the eyes of others. Every reaction drained respect. Ethan thought he was standing up for himself, but in truth, he was handing his power to everyone who pushed his buttons. Maya, the slave to rejection. Maya's prison was different, but just as real. She reacted to silence. A text not answered fast enough. Her mind spiraled, a date that ended without a promise. She crumbled, a friend who cancelled plans. She drowned in self-pity. Her entire self-worth was chained to other people's actions. One word could lift her, one silence could break her, and she couldn't see that each reaction was a surrender. She was giving strangers and acquaintances more power over her life than she had herself. The cycle of reaction. This is the cycle. 1. Trigger. Someone insults you. Life challenges you. 2. Reaction. You explode, collapse, or panic. 3. Loss of power. You feel weaker, smaller, drained. 4. Reinforcement. The world sees you as unstable, fragile, or easy to control, and so the cycle repeats. Every reaction tightens the chain. Every reaction hands the steering wheel of your life to someone else. Metaphor: the puppet strings. Think of reaction like puppet strings. The world pulls a string and you dance. Someone insults you, you get angry. Someone ignores you, you feel worthless. Circumstances turn bad, you collapse. You think you're free, but in truth, you're being controlled. Because whoever can trigger your reaction owns you. The illusion of strength. Here's the paradox. People often mistake reaction for strength. They think shouting back is power. They think posting an angry response is confidence. They think venting every emotion is authenticity. But in reality, it's weakness disguised as strength. Because true power never reacts, it responds. Reaction is a firecracker, loud, fast, gone in a second. Response is a volcano, steady, controlled, unstoppable. The cost of living in reaction. What is the cost of this way of living? Lost respect. People trust those who stay calm, not those who explode. Lost energy. Reaction drains your body, your mind, your spirit. Lost opportunities. Employers, partners, leaders, they choose those who respond, not those who react. Lost freedom. You live at the mercy of every insult, every delay, every piece of bad news. Ethan lost promotions. Maya lost relationships. And millions lose their future because they can't master their reactions. The audience mirror. And now, let's turn the mirror toward you. Think of the last time you overreacted, the last time you snapped, sulked, or spiraled. Did it make the situation better or worse? Did you feel stronger or weaker after? Be honest, because every moment of reaction is a moment of surrender. The seduction of reaction. But here's the dangerous part. Reaction feels good for a moment. The outburst, the vent, the angry text, the slammed door. It gives a hit of adrenaline like scratching an itch, but that momentary pleasure is followed by regret, by shame, by the loss of respect. It's like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. It feels like relief, but it deepens the drought. The long-term prison over time, living in reaction builds a prison. People stop taking you seriously. Your emotions feel out of your control. Your confidence erodes because you know you're not in charge of yourself. Ethan's career stagnated. Maya's relationships collapsed. And the saddest part, they believed life was unfair, never realizing they were handing life their power every single day. Reactions as chains. Bob Proctor's warning echoes here. When you react, you give away your power. Each reaction is a chain. Each reaction is a lock. Each reaction is another key handed to someone else. Until one day you wake up and realize you're not living your life. You're just reacting to everyone else's. Guided reflection. Pause for a moment. Think of one area where you've been reacting instead of responding. Is it with money, with your boss, with your partner, with your own fears? Picture how much power you've given away. Picture the chains. Picture the puppet strings. And now ask yourself, how long will I let the world own me? The loop forward. But here's the good news, because this is not where the story ends. If reaction is surrender, then response is freedom. If reaction makes you a puppet, then response makes you the master. And Bob Proctor gave us the map. When you respond, you are staying in control of yourself. But how do you make that shift? How do you stop reacting and start responding? How do you reclaim the power you've been giving away? That's the next step. Bob Proctor's words hold the key. When you react, you give away your power. When you respond, you are staying in control of yourself. The shift begins with a pause. The power of a single breath. Think about the last time you snapped in anger. It felt instant, automatic. That's the trap of reaction. It hijacks your body before your mind can intervene. But what if, in that single moment, you created space? One breath, one pause, one heartbeat. That pause is where control is born. Because in the pause, you're no longer the puppet. You're the master choosing the next move. Ethan's first pause. Ethan's boss criticized him again. Normally, Ethan would snap back, defending himself, raising his voice. But this time, he remembered Bob Proctor's words. He inhaled slowly. He counted to 3. And instead of reacting, he responded, "I see your point. Let me fix that." For the first time, the room shifted. His boss paused. His colleagues looked surprised. Ethan hadn't surrendered. He had redirected the energy. That single pause gave him control. Maya's first pause. Maya's friend cancelled plans at the last minute. Her old self would spiral into thoughts of rejection, worthlessness, abandonment, but she remembered. Respond, don't react. She took a deep breath. She asked herself, what's the truth here? Does this really mean I'm unloved? And instead of sulking, she responded with a message, no worries, let's find another time. Her friend replied with gratitude, and Maya felt something she hadn't felt in years. She was in charge of her own emotions. Metaphor. The remote control. Imagine someone else holding the remote control to your emotions. Every insult, every delay, every silence, they press a button and you react. But the moment you pause, you take the remote back. You decide the channel, you decide the volume, you decide the tone. Response is reclaiming the remote control of your life. Practical exercise number 1, the rule of 3 breaths. Next time you feel the surge of anger, fear, or insecurity, 1, stop. 2, inhale deeply, count to 3. 3, exhale slowly. 4, only then choose your response. You will be shocked at how differently you act after 3 conscious breaths. This is not weakness, it is mastery. Ethan's growing power. The more Ethan practiced pausing, the more his colleagues noticed. They began to trust him in tense meetings. They invited him into bigger conversations. Why? Because calm creates authority. People follow the one who doesn't lose control. Ethan's old reactions had made him small. His new responses made him magnetic. Maya's growing power. Maya also began to change. Instead of spiraling after every small rejection, she paused. She asked herself, what story am I telling? What response would a confident woman choose? Her friendships deepened, her conversations grew lighter, her dating life shifted, not because others changed, but because she no longer handed them her power. Maya stopped being a victim. She became the author of her emotional script. Practical exercise. Dakka 2, the question of choice. When you pause, ask, do I want to be controlled or do I want to choose? That single question transforms reaction into response. It reframes the moment. Instead of being a victim of circumstance, you become the master of choice. Metaphor. The chess player reaction is like checkers, fast, impulsive, reckless. Response is like chess, strategic, deliberate, powerful. The chess player wins not by moving first, but by moving wisely. When you pause, you shift from checkers to chess. You begin to play life on a higher level. The audience exercise. Let's try this now. Think of a situation that triggers you often. A person, a fear, a frustration. Close your eyes. Picture the trigger happening again. Now breathe. Count to 3. Instead of reacting, imagine yourself responding with calm authority. See the difference. Feel the difference. This is how you rewire your brain. This is how you reclaim your power. The first taste of freedom. Ethan discovered something shocking. The more he paused, the more respect he earned. Maya discovered something just as powerful. The more she paused, the more peace she carried. And you will discover it too. The pause is the doorway, because in that pause lies your freedom. The loop forward. But here's the challenge. If pausing is so powerful, if responding creates authority, if a single breath can reclaim your power, why don't people live this way all the time? The answer is darker. It's because the ego is addicted to reaction. It feeds on chaos, drama, and conflict. And unless you confront the deeper trap, you will always be pulled back into old patterns. So the next question is, how do you overcome the ego's addiction to reaction? That's where we go next. So you've learned to pause. You've taken the first breath, the first step toward power, but almost instantly the ego resists. Because the ego doesn't want calm. The ego doesn't want silence. The ego feeds on reaction. Every time you reclaim control, the ego feels starved, and like an addict, it fights back. Ethan's old buttons. Ethan had begun practicing his pauses at work. He was calmer, more respected, but one afternoon his boss criticized him in front of the entire team. The old button lit up. Shame, anger, embarrassment, and for a split second Ethan snapped, "That's not fair." The room went silent. The old Ethan was back, and in that moment he realized those old buttons were still there, waiting to be pushed. Maya's old buttons. Maya too had been practicing. She felt lighter, freer. But then, On a Friday night, she opened her phone and saw her ex smiling with someone new. Her chest tightened. Her stomach dropped. The spiral began. The old story came rushing back. I wasn't enough. I'll always be alone. She wanted to text. She wanted to scream. She wanted to react. And for a moment, she almost did. The ego's addiction. This is the bigger problem. The ego is addicted to reaction. It thrives on chaos, drama, conflict, because every reaction confirms the ego's story. I'm right to be angry. I'm justified in feeling worthless. The world really is against me. The ego wants proof, and reaction gives it exactly that. Metaphor, the hidden buttons. Think of the ego as a wall covered in hidden buttons. Every insult presses one. Every rejection presses another. Every delay, every failure, every silence, more buttons. And each time a button is pressed, if you react, the ego wins. It dances, it feeds, it grows stronger, the illusion of control. Here's the dangerous trick. The ego convinces you that reaction is control. When Ethan snapped at his boss, he felt strong for 2 seconds. When Maya almost texted her ex, she felt powerful for a heartbeat. But afterward, both felt weaker, smaller, ashamed. Reaction is borrowed power. It burns fast, then leaves you empty. Practical trap, number 1, the need for proof. The ego says, don't believe until you see proof. Ethan thought, I'll stay calm when my boss respects me first. Maya thought, I'll feel worthy when someone proves they love me. But that's backwards. Bob Proctor's wisdom flips it. Calm first, control first, then respect and love follow. The ego wants the outer world to change before the inner world does, but that's like demanding the mirror smile before you do. Practical trap number 2, the drama high. The ego loves the high of drama, the argument, the rant, the text you regret. It feels like fire in the veins, but it burns you more than anyone else. Reaction gives the ego a hit, but like any addiction, it leaves you weaker afterward. Guided reprogramming. So what do you do when the ego screams for reaction? You breathe deeper, you pause longer, you remind yourself, I am not my buttons, I'm not my ego, I'm the one who chooses. Release doubt, release fear, return to the pause. Say it with me now. I choose to respond, not react. I choose control, not chaos. I choose freedom. Each time you affirm this, you weaken the ego's grip. Ethan's second chance. The next week, Ethan's boss snapped again. The button lit up. But this time, Ethan didn't bite. He breathed. He smiled. He said calmly, let's talk after the meeting. And instead of losing respect, he gained it. People began to see him as unshakable. Ethan realized his buttons were still there, but he no longer had to let them control him. Maya's second chance. Maya also got another test. Her friend cancelled plans last minute, again. The old story rose up. You're not important. But instead of spiraling, she paused. She breathed. She asked, what's the truth here? What response serves me best? She chose to send a light message, then did something kind for herself. And for the first time, the trigger didn't own her. She owned herself. Metaphor, the dog on a leash. The ego is like a wild dog pulling at a leash. If you let go, it drags you into chaos. If you hold firm, it eventually calms down and walks beside you. The leash is your pause. The leash is your choice to respond. Without it, the dog rules you. With it, you rule the dog. The audience's confrontation now, turn inward. What are your buttons? Who knows how to press them? What situations make you lose yourself? Picture them clearly. Then imagine holding the leash. Imagine pausing longer. Imagine refusing to react. Feel how powerful that would be. The loop forward. But here's the ultimate question. What happens when you finally believe more in your ability to respond than in the ego's need to react? What happens when your calm becomes unshakable, no matter what button is pressed? That is the moment when life bends in your favor. That is the moment when you become untouchable. And that is the secret we unlock next. There comes a moment when the struggle ends, when the pauses are no longer forced, when the breath is no longer a tool, but a habit. When responding isn't something you try to do, it's simply who you are. That is the state Bob Proctor pointed to. A life where control is natural, where your presence itself is magnetic. Ethan's transformation. Ethan kept practicing, breath after breath, meeting after meeting. At first, the pause felt clumsy, like training wheels on a bike, but over time it became seamless. One afternoon, when a colleague tried to provoke him, Ethan didn't even feel the urge to snap. He smiled calmly, responded with clarity, and the tension dissolved instantly. People began to describe him differently: reliable, grounded, unshakable. Ethan realized the truth. He no longer had to remember to pause. He had become the pause. And in that state, he stopped chasing respect. Respect came to him. Maya's transformation. Maya's journey was just as profound. She no longer spiraled when plans changed, when texts went unanswered, when comparison tried to creep in. Instead, she felt a steady calm inside her chest, as if her worth had become untouchable. When she walked into a room, people noticed something new: confidence without arrogance, warmth without desperation. She wasn't performing calm, she was living it. And soon, healthier relationships came into her life, not because she begged for love, but because her calm presence attracted it naturally. The magnetic power of response. Here is the paradox of power. The less you react, the more influence you gain. The calmer you are, the more people lean toward you. The more in control you remain, the more others want to follow. Because in a world addicted to chaos, calm is magnetic. When you live in continuous self-control, you don't just keep your power, you radiate it. Exercise. Step into the state. Close your eyes now. Picture yourself tomorrow. The trigger comes, the insult, the delay, the silence. But instead of reacting, you breathe, you smile, you choose. See how people respond differently. See how respect flows. See how your body feels lighter, freer, stronger. Breathe again, anchor it. Say these words softly: I respond, I do not react, I am in control of myself. Let them sink into your mind until they feel like truth. Metaphor: the mountain. Think of a mountain. Storms crash against it, winds roar, rain beats down. But the mountain doesn't move. That's what it means to live in continuous self-control. To be unshaken, unmovable, untouchable. Not because storms don't come, but because your foundation is stronger than the storm. The audience's invitation. So now ask yourself, what would your life look like if you became the mountain? If no insult, no rejection, no chaos could move you? If responding was simply who you were? That is not fantasy. That is the destiny Bob Proctor spoke of. It begins with pauses. It grows with practice. It becomes your identity. Closing inspiration. Ethan gained respect. Maya attracted love. And you will gain the life you've been waiting for, not by controlling the world, but by controlling yourself. Because the world cannot take power from you unless you give it away. Bob Proctor's words echo as truth. When you react, you give away your power. When you respond, you are staying in control of yourself. And when staying in control becomes natural, you don't just live with power, you live as power. If you stayed with me until this point, you've done more than just listen. You've practiced presence. You've proven to yourself that you can stay, you can focus, you can respond. Now let's anchor this moment with action, not reaction. When you like this video, don't do it mindlessly. Do it as an act of power. As you click, say to yourself, I choose to respond. I am in control. And that single click becomes a declaration of who you are becoming. When you subscribe, don't see it as adding another channel. See it as surrounding yourself with reminders that pull you back into power. Each notification is not noise. It's a signal, a voice saying, stay in control, stay awake, stay powerful. And in the comments, write these words slowly. I respond. I do not react. I am in control of myself. Write it as a ritual, not to convince others, but to prove it to yourself. To impress it upon your subconscious, to engrave it into your identity. Pause, breathe, write, respond. Because in this moment, you are not reacting, you are choosing. You are proving that Bob Proctor's wisdom is not just an idea, it's your reality. And tomorrow, when the world tests you, you'll remember, power is not given, power is chosen.